One day, you wake up and realize that the life you've been living has never truly been your own. Every habit, every choice, every smile you show the world seems to have been scripted somewhere else, by family, by society, by the fear of being left behind. You still go to work, maintain relationships, fulfill responsibilities, yet deep inside, there is a hollow space that never seems to be filled. Carl Jung once said, "Most of us go through half of life without ever truly living, because we only know how to play the roles others expect of us." That is why you can achieve what you wanted, but the joy dissolves quickly. You can be surrounded by many people and still feel utterly alone. Jung insisted, life only truly begins when you discover yourself, not when you become perfect, not when you finally satisfy everyone else, but when you dare to face the deepest part of you, the place where you no longer have to play anyone but yourself. This video will not give you a formula. It will simply hold a mirror before you. Who are you really living for? And how much of your life actually belongs to you? If you've never answered that question, then perhaps until now you have only been existing, not truly living. You may not realize it, but for years you've been living in a mild state of dissociation. One part of you knows clearly what you want, what you feel, what you long for. But another part, the one society has trained, always responds with compliance. Anything is fine as long as everyone else is happy. Jung called that part the persona, the social mask. It helps you adapt. It helps you gain acceptance, but it is also what makes you fade in your own eyes. You can notice this in familiar situations. When a colleague makes a decision you disagree with, you remain silent because you're afraid of being seen as difficult. When family asks your opinion, you nod because you fear disappointing someone. Time after time, you choose the safe role over your true voice. The problem is that each time you do, a part of your authentic self, what Jung called the self, is pushed deeper into the shadows. The psychological symptom of this state is often an inner emptiness. You fulfill your roles, but you feel no connection. You achieve success, but the joy evaporates instantly. This is the classic sign of a self that has been buried under the persona for too long. Many of the patients Jung observed who lived in this condition shared the same haunting confession. "I am alive, but I do not feel alive." And as the distance between persona and self grows wider, the result is estrangement from yourself. You may be skilled at pleasing others, but clumsy when it comes to listening to yourself. You may know exactly what others want, but remain unclear about what you truly desire. This becomes fertile ground for depression, anxiety, and deep exhaustion. Jung warned, if a person never steps onto the path of individuation, the journey of discovering and unifying the self, they will live their entire life in this split. Socially, they will appear fine, but psychologically, they are only a hollow shell. And in the end, the tragedy does not lie in failure, but in the fact that they never truly began to live as a whole human being. Carl Jung once wrote, "People become what they pretend to be for too long." That line strikes at the very heart of the problem. We live in two layers. The outer layer is the persona, the social mask created so we can adapt, so others can accept us more easily. The inner layer is the self, the whole, complete core of who we are, containing both the desires, emotions, and potentials that often remain hidden. The problem begins when the persona is no longer a tool, but becomes your entire identity. You start to believe you are the mask itself, and everything else, the rejected feelings, the suppressed longings, gets pushed down into the basement of the psyche. Jung called this the shadow. The shadow is not only what is bad, it also holds strengths that were never allowed to surface. It may be the righteous anger you swallowed, the talent dismissed as unrealistic, the courage buried under the countless times you were told, "Stop dreaming." At first glance, the shadow looks like an enemy, but Jung emphasized, if you do not face it and integrate it, it will find another way to speak, through anxiety, depression, or chronic exhaustion. This is the crucial link. You do not suffer because you don't know how to live. You suffer because you have lived too long in conflict between persona and self. You smile outwardly, but inside you are drained. You excel at reading the needs of others, yet gradually forget how to listen to yourself. And each day, the gap widens, leaving you in a quiet state of inner division. Jung called the journey of healing and growth individuation, the process of reconciling persona, shadow, and self to become a whole human being. This does not mean discarding the mask, but learning to recognize what the mask is and what your true face is. Only then can you stop living as a role and begin living as a being. In the unconscious, the persona does not form by chance. From childhood, you learned that some parts of yourself were welcomed and others had to be hidden. When you were cheerful and obedient, you were praised. When you were angry, sad, or showed difference, you were punished, criticized, or at least met with disapproving eyes. The unconscious child absorbed a lesson. If I want to be loved, I must cut away a part of myself, and so you began to build a mask to survive. That is the first mechanism. The second mechanism arrives as you grow older. The persona begins to fuse with your identity. You no longer distinguish between role and reality. When colleagues call you professional, when friends call you easygoing, you feel safe. Yet alongside that safety comes a vague exhaustion. Jung called this the mistaken identification with the persona. You start to believe you are the mask and forget there is a much richer life beneath it. The third mechanism is the loop of self-denial. Each time the shadow tries to speak, you silence it. You feel anger but say, "It's fine." You want to rest but force yourself to keep going. You feel sadness, but rush to smile so others won't worry. Each time, a piece of you is pushed deeper underground. The shadow grows thicker, and the unconscious grows heavier. Eventually, this loop reaches a breaking point. Jung observed many who came to him in precisely this condition, outwardly functional, inwardly depleted. They said the same haunting phrases, "I have everything, but I feel nothing at all." This is the sign that the persona is no longer strong enough to shield, while the shadow is too full to be contained. And here comes the rupture of awareness. The problem is not that you are not good enough, but that you have never truly lived as yourself. The fatigue, the anxiety, the emptiness, all of it did not come because you were wrong, but because you betrayed your inner voice too many times. Jung affirmed, this very moment can mark the beginning of a new life, because when the mask cracks, you finally have the chance to see your real face. It is not a collapse. It is an invitation from the unconscious. Stop pretending and begin living as a whole human being. If you can hear that call, this may be the day your life truly begins. Imagine that within each of us there is a great mirror placed deep inside. As a child, that mirror was clear and radiant, reflecting every authentic feeling, every innocent dream, every natural spark of your being. But as the years passed, each time you were told, "Don't cry," a thin layer of dust settled on it. Each time you had to smile when you wanted to say no, another layer of dust appeared. Each time you hid your difference just to fit neatly in the eyes of others, the mirror grew dimmer. By the time you reached adulthood, you still stood in front of it, but only a blurred outline stared back, no longer recognizable as yourself. This is the metaphor of persona and shadow. The persona is the outer dust. It makes others see only a pleasant image, but not your true self. The shadow is what lies behind that dust. The feelings, desires, and strengths that have never been allowed into the light. And the mirror itself, your true essence, remains there, waiting for the day it will be wiped clean. Jung often emphasized, life only truly begins when you dare to look into that mirror and see everything, the light and the dark. To clean the mirror does not mean to erase the shadow, but to accept it as part of the whole reflection. Only when you see clearly can you know who you are. This metaphor also explains why so many feel empty, because they have lived too long with a blurred image until they believe that is all they are. But the truth is different. The sharp reflection has never vanished. It has only been covered. And one day, when you decide to reach out and wipe away the years of dust, you will see your true face reflected once more. Perhaps unfamiliar, perhaps frightening, but also the moment when you finally begin to live. If you look closely, you will see that you've lived many times in small but recurring moments of inner split. Outwardly, you say it's fine, but inside, your body reacts differently. Your heart beats faster, your shoulders tighten, and sleep comes late. These are signals that you've just brushed another layer of dust onto the mirror within. These layers do not come from grand events, but from countless small choices. Staying silent when you had an opinion, smiling when you weren't happy, agreeing when you truly wanted to refuse. In psychology, this state is called self-alienation, the estrangement from oneself. The more you live through the persona, the less you connect with the self. And the less contact you have with the self, the more hollow you feel. Because all authentic energy gets pushed down into the shadow, leaving only the thin performance standing on the surface. The consequences do not appear immediately. They accumulate quietly into symptoms. Fatigue without a clear cause. Joy that vanishes right after success. Loneliness even when surrounded by many people. This is not weakness. It is the psychological outcome of losing inner coherence. Living one way, feeling another. The cost of continuing like this is that it becomes harder and harder to recognize your true voice. One day, you will stand before the mirror and see a face that is familiar, yet foreign, because the image no longer reflects the person you once were. Jung called this the tragedy of the persona, when the mask, meant only as a tool for survival, takes over the entire identity. If you do not stop, the day will come when you lose not only your trust in the world, but your trust in yourself. And that is the heaviest price of all. Letting the mirror remain covered in dust for too long. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This means that to begin truly living, you don't need to become someone else. You only need to dare to look directly into your own mirror. Cleaning the dust is not about changing your essence, but allowing your true image the chance to appear. The problem is, for years you've grown used to calling yourself by names given by others. The agreeable one, the one who endures, the one who never disappoints. That is the language of the persona. Repeat it long enough and you begin to believe it is who you are. Reframing means changing that language. From, "I'm strange because I'm not like anyone else," to, "I'm different, and that difference is my value." From, "I'm weak because I'm sensitive," to, I'm perceptive, and my sensitivity lets me see what others overlook. The new language doesn't just alter words, it transforms the way you experience yourself. This is where the archetypes enter. Jung called them the ancient patterns in the collective unconscious, operating beneath every story and every life. Within you, there is always the hero, longing to step away from the crowd and face the challenge. But the hero never travels alone. He always encounters the shadow, the fears, the anger, the repressed desires. That shadow is both opponent and mirror, forcing you to grow. And there is also the Anima/Animus, the feminine in men, the masculine in women. Those elements society has taught us to reject, but that are actually the keys to becoming whole. The more you avoid them, the more they rise as obsessions and disturbances. The more you face them, the more they transform into inner resources. In therapy, Jung observed that when a person begins to acknowledge their shadow, the part they once felt ashamed of, they do not become weaker, they become stronger. A person who admits their anger and names it will erupt less than someone who constantly denies it. A person who admits to moments of selfishness will mature faster than someone who insists on always appearing self-sacrificing. Cleaning the mirror means seeing both the cracks and the light in the reflection, and accepting that together they form the whole picture. This is also the moment when you reclaim the right to choose. In the past, you spoke yes as a reflex. Now, you can pause, breathe, and ask, does this reflect who I am? If the answer is no, you can learn to refuse without believing you are wrong. In that moment, you no longer live as a puppet shadow, but as a human being with sovereignty. Reframing does not turn you into someone else. It simply returns you to your original state, the place where the mirror is clear enough for you to recognize your true face. And in that moment, you will understand Jung's words. Life only truly begins when you find yourself. Cleaning the mirror is not one grand act, but a series of small steps repeated daily. Step 1. Acknowledge your real emotion the moment it appears. When you feel irritation, don't rush to brush it off with, "I'm fine." Pause for a few seconds and whisper, "I am angry." Simply naming it removes a layer of dust. Step 2. Practice one short refusal. You don't need to justify with long explanations. Try simple phrases, "I'm not ready," or "Today I need rest." Each time you dare to say it, you reclaim a fragment of your true reflection. Step 3. Create a ritual of self-checking. Each night, spend 5 minutes writing one line. Today, when was I real? When did I hide? This is like wiping the mirror daily, preventing the dust from piling up until you can no longer see yourself. Final step. Choose a space reserved only for you. It could be a small corner with a notebook, or a short path you walk alone. When you enter it, you don't need to perform, don't need to endure. You only need to be present. Jung once said, "Confronting one's own darkness is the most courageous act of all." And each of these small steps is how you begin that journey. You don't need to overturn your whole life at once. You only need today to wipe one corner of the mirror and allow your true self to reflect again. If you continue to let the mirror gather dust, the price will not appear immediately, but it will quietly erode you. You will live a life that seems complete on the outside but feels hollow within. You will be praised for being agreeable, for being accommodating, yet every night in silence, you will feel like a guest in your own life. Jung called this the tragedy of the persona, when the mask, meant only as a tool for survival, ends up consuming the entire identity. On the other hand, when you begin to clean the mirror, You touch a quality Jung described as wholeness. Not perfection, but harmony between what you show and who you truly are. You may still wear the persona when needed, but you know it is only a temporary garment, not your true being. And you are brave enough to face the shadow instead of denying it. This is also the moment when an illusion collapses, the illusion of self, the belief that the I you protect is fixed and permanent. Jung emphasized that the I you think of as yourself is only a small fragment, often just a social mannequin. The true self is vast, fluid, and never limited by the labels you wear. When you realize this, a strange relief emerges. You no longer have to defend a role. You are free to become, rather than strain to be. The final philosophy here is not gentle. It cuts like a knife. Either you continue to live in the illusion of the persona, or you dare to break it and step into the infinite process of the self. If you do not change, you will live as a shadow, present in the eyes of others, but absent within yourself. But if you dare to change, you will begin a life that is truly yours, where you no longer exist as a performance, but stand as a being that is alive, expanding, and endlessly becoming. By now, you may realize that most of your life has only been existence. You have learned how to please, how to play the role, how to smile at the right moments. But Jung reminded us that it is not yet living. Life truly begins the moment you dare to reclaim yourself. And that journey does not start somewhere far away. It begins with a simple gesture, placing your hand on the dusty mirror, wiping away the blur, and looking directly at the reflection. You may feel unfamiliar, you may even feel afraid, but that is the first real moment. The only question left is this: are you ready for your life to truly begin? Or will you continue repeating the same passing days, like an old roll worn thin? Only you can answer. Take a few seconds of silence when this video ends to listen to the voice inside. And if you wish to continue this journey with us, stay. Because ahead, there are still many more doors of the soul waiting for you to step through.